Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror thriller film, The Reaping. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a priest waking up from his sleep because of a burning smell. He begins his inspection and finds a woman's photograph burning. He then checks the cabinets and takes all of the woman's burning pictures. The priest notices something even more strange, so he arranges all the photographs. The burn marks from the pictures create an upside-down sickle. The scene then changes into the modern city of Chile. There we see the two miracle investigators. One is Catherine, who turns out to be the woman in the pictures, and she is with her colleague, Ben. The two go through a crowd with the help of a policeman. The crowd is filled with religious yet strange people, filling up the passageway to a cave. The two then finally arrive at the cave, where they see a clergyman's corpse that remains unspoiled, despite being dead for 40 years. The clergyman's tomb was broken by an earthquake a month ago, which since then has been treated by the townspeople as a miracle. Catherine notices something on the tomb's cracks, so she goes underneath to check it, and Ben follows her. They see the walls and floors covered with a red substance, which looks like blood. Then suddenly, the two hear something from above, so Catherine climbs the stairs, which are also covered with a red substance. She opens the hatch and sees a room also covered with a red substance. Then someone suddenly pulls out Catherine, so Ben immediately follows her. They come across two workers wearing hazmat uniforms. The workers are mad about the inspector's sudden visit, so they promptly instruct the two investigators to leave. However, Catherine quickly takes pictures of numerous drums of toxic waste before leaving. After their expedition, Catherine shares to her class her discovery about debunking another miracle by scientific fact. It turns out that underneath the corpse is illegal underground disposal of toxic waste from greedy corporations, which cause the clergyman's corpse to remain preserved. If the chemical is inhaled, it creates intense hallucinatory factors, which explains why the people in the cave could feel miracles. Due to people's economic deprivation and lack of proper education, they immediately believe what happened to be a miracle. After her lecture, Catherine goes to her office when she receives a phone call from the priest from the beginning of the film, who turns out to be her friend. The priest informs Catherine about the burn marks on her pictures and the upside-down sickle symbol, claiming that it is a warning from God. However, Catherine stopped believing in God years ago, so she ignores the priest's words. After dropping the call, Catherine reminisces about when she and her family were on an expedition with the priest. Ben interrupts her thoughts and comes in with a man named Doug. Catherine instructs Doug to walk with her on her way to the class. Doug explains that he's a teacher in a nearby town of Haven, where a river turned dark red 3 days ago. The locals are concerned as they believe it was a biblical plague caused by a girl who the townspeople believe killed her older brother in the river. Thereupon, Catherine and Ben go to the town, where a pregnant resident accompanies them to a church. Shortly after, Doug leads them to a river. They say that the river is entirely red with numerous dead fishes floating around. Catherine and Ben start to investigate, and they take a river's water sample and a fish corpse to study. After that, the two and Doug go to the river's shallow part for further investigation. Doug stays on the boat with Ben, while Catherine goes through the woods. Catherine takes pictures around, but suddenly, a girl comes out of a tree. Catherine falls onto the ground in shock, hitting her head. All of a sudden, Catherine sees a quick vision of the girl in the river with her dead brother. Catherine then recovers, and she sees the girl running away from her. Catherine follows her, but the girl is quick, so Catherine loses her. Suddenly, Doug appears out of nowhere, so Catherine informs him about the girl. Doug confirms it is Lauren, who the townspeople blame for the Red River. Doug then leads Catherine to the ruins of an old church. Doug explains that it was destroyed by 3 hurricanes 100 years ago, so the townspeople were forced to relocate. At the same time, while Ben investigates the river's water, he sees a dead frog floating around. Ben checks it, when suddenly, numerous dead frogs from above mysteriously fall into the river. So Ben calls Catherine and immediately informs her about it. Doug and Catherine return to the river, and they see Ben taking a dead frog as a sample. After that, the 3 of them return to the land. While the 2 take their equipment and samples inside the car, Doug informs them that they will be staying in his house because the town has no motels. Catherine goes with Doug, while Ben follows them. Catherine is amazed as they reach the house because of its beautiful exterior. Doug shares that he came from a long line of only children in his family, and his grandfather gave him the house. Later that night, Doug grills some fish from the grocery, while Ben and Catherine drink beer. When their food is finally cooked, Doug takes the plate, but when he returns to the grill, their dinner is suddenly infested by flies and maggots. The 3 of them are baffled as to how instantly it happened. The 2 take a sample from it, and Doug receives a call asking them to come to a nearby farm. So the 3 of them decide to visit the farm. when suddenly, an angry bull attacks them. The bull repeatedly charges at the vehicle, but fortunately, the farm owner is there and shoots it. After that, the farm owner informs them that his cows are mysteriously getting sick and dying of some unknown disease. His family and animals drink their water from a well, so the river could not contaminate them. Because of that, Ben begins to question if there is really a scientific explanation to explain what is happening. He starts to think that the events actually have biblical causes, but Catherine remains unconvinced and scientifically explains all the biblical plagues. The farm then adds that they witnessed something when they visited Lauren's family last Christmas. They saw people chanting with the family in the house, and an undead thing butchered in the kitchen sink. He thinks that they are Satan worshippers sacrificing to their god. Meanwhile, while the priest is out reading the Bible, he sees the silhouette of a holy statue transforming into flies, and then the walls start to move. A nun touches the priest, and suddenly, everything returns to normal. On the other hand, while Catherine and Ben work independently, the power suddenly goes out, so Catherine goes out of her room and gets inside Doug's room to tell him about the sudden blackout. However, Doug is not there, so Catherine roams around, looking at Doug's pictures with his wife. Then suddenly, the strong wind causes the windows to open widely. Catherine walks to the terrace, where she sees the light twinkling nearby. Despite the grotesque weather, Catherine goes out and walks towards it, where she sees Doug visiting his wife's tomb. Doug shares that his wife died of cancer before they could build a family together. Catherine decides to share why she stopped believing in God. It was 5 years ago when she got ordained as a minister. The priest told her about missionary work in Sudan, so Catherine decided to take her family on the journey. However, the locals killed her husband and daughter for sacrificing, believing that they caused the drought. Because of that, Catherine spent the rest of her life dedicated to proving that every bullshit miracle has a scientific explanation. After returning to the house, Doug and Catherine engage in a 69 hormone exchange. While she's on top of Doug, Catherine sees Lauren outside peeping at her. Suddenly, Catherine wakes up and realizes that it's just a dream. The next day, Catherine sees Lauren again outside, so she goes out to talk to her. However, Lauren runs away, so Catherine follows her when she trips. Catherine is suddenly back in Sudan, where she sees her dead daughter lying on a wooden bed. Catherine hugs her as she cries, when suddenly her daughter transforms into Lauren. Then her family's killer suddenly appears out of nowhere and stabs Catherine. Catherine then hears Ben's voice waking her up, and she calms down as she realizes that everything is a bad dream. After that, Catherine goes downstairs to drink water when she notices white footprints on the floor. Catherine follows the trail with her eyes, and she sees her feet covered with white sand, just like in Sudan's white sand in her dreams. The following day, Ben sees Doug checking out the samples, so Ben informs him about what he found. Biologically speaking, there is nothing wrong with the dead cows, frogs, flies, and fishes. Confused, Doug shares that, according to the sheriff, when Lauren's brother was found, there was nothing physically or biologically wrong about him. However, he has not been autopsied yet. Meanwhile, Catherine decides to get inside Lauren's house, as she receives no answer from inside. Catherine roams around the house, which has clearly been neglected of care. Catherine follows a trail of blood print on the floor, leading to an equipment room. She then notices that the print stopped in front of a cabinet, so Catherine checks if it hides a secret room. She moves the cabinet and sees a door with an upside-down sickle carved on it. Catherine tries to open the door when Lauren suddenly appears. Catherine calmly talks to her, but she notices blood on Lauren's leg, which means Lauren started to menstruate. Catherine gently instructs Lauren to follow her outside to get her cleaned up. Lauren remains silent the whole time, letting Catherine do whatever she wants. Catherine takes the towel and wipes the blood when she suddenly sees a vision of Lauren and her brother in the river. The vision quickly vanishes, and at the same time, Lauren mysteriously disappears. Although confused, Catherine still gets inside the house to look for Lauren. However, Lauren's mother shows up instead. She is in tears as she asks Catherine if she can kill her daughter. Catherine denies it and says she wants to help Lauren. The mother replies that her daughter doesn't need any help. Before she can explain, Lauren suddenly reappears and attacks her mother. Catherine tries to help, but the mother quickly gets hold of her daughter and angrily asks Catherine to leave. Simultaneously, Doug and Ben visit a church filled with worried townspeople. Children are forced to shave their heads because of the sudden lice infestation. The adults are rushing Doug and Ben to find an explanation for the events, so the two leave to check out Lauren's dead brother. In the morgue, after seeing the corpse, Ben immediately contacts Catherine and instructs her to come. Moments later, after arriving, Catherine is shocked to see the corpse's state. It is already in the dry stage of decomposition, which is unnatural because it would take years for dead bodies to reach that stage. But Lauren's brother died just a few days ago. Catherine and Ben examine the body and find the upside-down sickle symbol on its back. The three go out of the morgue to inform the mayor when the sheriff stops them. He gives Catherine the lab results, which say that the water from the river is human blood. Because of that, Catherine calls the priest and informs him about everything. So the priest explains that based on his research, the upside-down sickle symbolizes a satanic cult that sacrifices every second-born child once they hit puberty, so as to create a perfect child with the eyes of Satan. People can't hurt Lauren because Satan made the plagues to protect Lauren, for she portrayed Satan's image. The priest adds that only an angel will be able to destroy the satanic child. The priest insists that Catherine is the angel, as she was ordained with that mission. While the priest convinces Catherine that she can stop the prophecy, the pictures suddenly burn into flames, which quickly spread across the room. The priest tries to leave, but the door is stuck, so he screams for help. However, no one is around, and the fire finally kills him. At that same time, Ben and Doug go to the mayor for an urgent evacuation. However, they find him and his staff dead because of the boils in their bodies. Because of that, some of the townspeople decide to handle things by themselves and go to Lauren's house to kill her and stop the plagues. Catherine goes to Lauren's house before the townspeople arrive. She moves the cabinet and walks downstairs in the hidden room, which turns out to be the cult's sacrificial chamber. There, Catherine comes across Lauren's mother, who claims that her daughter is now Satan's servant. The mother then pulls out a gun and kills herself. Catherine then hears footsteps coming, so she hides underneath the stairs as Lauren walks into the chamber. Suddenly, Catherine's phone rings. Upon hearing something upstairs, Lauren immediately goes up. Catherine follows her and sees the whole property covered by a horde of locusts. Lauren is standing in the middle while the townspeople ready their guns. Ben and Doug attempt to stop them, but a resident cocks his gun and the whole horde of locusts attacks them. Lauren watches as the locusts kill the townspeople, except for Catherine, Doug, and Ben. Doug runs away to the woods, accidentally falling into the river. Catherine gets to the house and locks herself inside, while Ben hides in a tomb. Ben starts to wander in the crypt and discovers skeletons and bodies of sacrificed children. He immediately informs Catherine about it and instructs her to meet him. Then suddenly, he sees Lauren outside. Catherine gets out of the house and goes to the tomb, where she sees Ben's dead body. Doug then appears, so Catherine orders him to stay inside the tomb while she faces the evil Lauren. Outside, as Lauren and Catherine face each other, darkness covers the sky, followed by fiery hail and thunder. Just as Catherine is about to kill Lauren, she suddenly says that Lauren was a gift from God. That causes Catherine to wonder if anything that has been happening is real. Lauren replies, "Faith," and shows Catherine a vision of the truth. Catherine sees the whole town as actually the cult, even Doug, trying to kill Lauren to sacrifice to Satan. Lauren escapes them, so her brother chases her through the woods until to the lake, where he stabs her. However, the stab wound mysteriously heals, and her brother quickly dies holding the knife. Catherine realizes that Lauren is innocent, as she is God's angel. Right then, Doug appears and convinces Catherine to kill Lauren. As she discovers the truth, Catherine tosses the knife to Doug and instructs him to kill Lauren. However, Doug cannot do it as they already tried, but Lauren survived. Doug deceived Catherine and tricked her into killing Lauren because only an ordained servant of God could kill Lauren, who is actually the saint gift of God, rather than the satanic child. Catherine also discovers that Doug killed Ben, so she would be tricked into blaming Lauren for his death. Knowing the truth, Catherine holds Lauren and attempts to leave, but the townspeople suddenly appear out of nowhere and corner them. Left with no choice, Doug confesses that his family recruited the whole town to worship Satan, believing that God had neglected them. That's why he reached out to Catherine for help, hoping that she would join the cult, as she had already stopped her belief in God. Even after that, Doug still convinces Catherine to kill Lauren, but she refuses. She adds that there is still the death of the firstborn plague, and all of the townspeople are firstborn that came from the long line of only children. Suddenly, balls of fire fall from above, killing the cult. Doug grabs Catherine and tries to kill her, but a massive ball of fire lifts him from the ground and kills him. The massive ball of fire causes an explosion, but Catherine and Lauren remain alive. The following day, Catherine and Lauren drive away from the evil town. As they drive away, Lauren reveals that she can hear the baby boy inside Catherine's belly. The film ends with Catherine realizing that the 69 hormone exchange with Doug she had previously was him drugging and raping her. Catherine realizes that her unborn child with Doug is none other than the prophesied child of Satan. This is Daniel's CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.